So the War of 1812 exposed the inadequacy of America's financial system as well as our transportation system. The United States expanded territorially or had a drastic expansion as a result of the Louisiana Purchase. Never mind the expansion after the Revolutionary War all the way to the Mississippi River before that. The United States was not a small country at that point. Okay, it had grown into two-thirds of the size that it currently is, and you still had primitive type roads. That was going to be a problem. But in order to really stimulate the economy, you'd have to get back on one page. The initial charter, the First National Bank of the United States, ended its charter in the early 1800s, and the War of 1812 saw many different states print their own currency and print their own forms of currency. And a problem loomed because, well, there really wasn't any sort of unification. What was the true value of all this currency that was being made? It was easily counterfeited, if that makes sense. And money from this period, you just didn't know what you're going to get from state to state. And it became obvious that there would need to be a second bank of the United States. There would need to be another bank that would be centralized that could, if not eliminate state money, at least give it more stability. So you'd have national currency and eventually kind of price out some of these staters and reduce counterfeit. And so just that, in 1816, Congress enacted the Second Bank of the United States. Now, it's one of the things that was really important so as to reunify our finances. The United States also wanted to promote manufacturing within the country. You had the advent of the cotton gin. The United States was producing far more cotton than previously had done. The number of cotton spindles had drastically increased as a result of the cotton output now in the United States. And you had the emergence of textile mills. Now, these textile mills were very primitive until Francis Cabot Lowell, a Bostonian, actually went over to Britain to kind of oversee various different textile machinery and how it can be utilized in the United States to help him develop a power loom that could crank out and increase the process of spinning and weaving. And forgive me, I'm not a real person interested or big into fabrics or anything of that sort. But that's basically it. Spinning and weaving and the mechanization thereof made things really fast. Well, if you have a source to where you could house a large number of these spinning machines under one roof, and maybe you could power these machines with hydropower. Maybe you have these textile mills along a river or along some sort of water source that can be controlled to produce power and turn the machines, then you're now going to be able to crank out all kinds of different stuff in these textile mills. You're going to produce all kinds of clothes. All that's great because, well, you had cut off trade from Great Britain. But as a result of the end of the War of 1812, you now resumed trade and peaceful actions, and now you flood the market with British goods again. Well, that's now pricing out some of the textile folks like Lowell. So that's now where Congress passed a tariff to be placed on foreign goods, especially on clothing items or those that make clothes like cotton, anything else of that sort. So now you would basically kind of level the playing field. Tariffs in American history are nothing new, and recent presidents like Donald Trump, for example, have enacted tariffs to increase domestic production and economy. If we are going to rely so much on foreign goods, his belief is that it's going to hurt the American worker in manufacturing. So if we place a tariff, which is a tax on foreign goods, then you're going to price them out, basically. People are going to have to pay more for those types of goods, which negates the reason why they're being bought overseas in the first place. That's the idea behind a tariff. Oftentimes what happens in reality is that tariffs are met with tariffs from the other country. So really the consumer loses out in a lot of different ways. But otherwise, the idea of having American-made goods that are priced accordingly is now in play. Now, as I mentioned a little bit ago, the United States had now vast territory. There's not a lot of infrastructure in that territory, not a whole lot of roads. So the United States decided to do something about it. There would be a need for better transportation system. We talked about turnpikes in the last chapter. One of the things that was thought of was now the public land that was available, especially out west in the new Louisiana Territory, proceeds of which could be used to pay for roads, like roads that basically go across the country. Using those revenues to link various different primitive highway type systems. Not necessarily the modern interstate system. We'll talk about that in 1302. But otherwise, though, you're going to have national roads that can link various different places. As well, we talked about steamboats in the last chapter. Nowadays, you're going to be able to utilize navigation, especially along the Mississippi River, and you're going to be able to go into some of the Mississippi's better tributaries like the Ohio River and connect places like New Orleans with Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay? In the 18 teens, the Mississippi River is now the dead center of the United States. Okay. And it has tributaries all in and throughout. And so now, because you have steamships and you're building national roads, you're able to take much of the finished goods out west in a more efficient and timely manner. So you have transportation, steam-powered shipping, all those things that are taking place in the 18 teens, and you start to see economic growth.